You're welcome to sit at these.
Recording in progress.
If you need a chair, you can sit down here if you like. Aquí enfrente está bien. Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming to here tonight to the regular meeting of the Madera City Council. Today is Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. It is now 6 p.m. The council chambers will be open to the public. This meeting will also be available for public viewing and participation through Zoom. Members of the public may also observe the live streamed meeting on the city's website at www.madera.gov/live. Members of the public may comment on agenda items at the meeting or remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669-900-6833 and enter ID 897-7517-9569 hashtag. Comments will also be accepted via email at City Council Public Comment at madera.gov or by regular mail at 205 West 4th Street, Madera, California, 93637. I now call this meeting to order. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Garcia?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Evans?
Here.
Councilmember Gallegos?
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Here.
Councilmember Montes?
Here.
Councilmember Mejia?
Here.
And Councilmember Villegas?
I'm here.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Would you all please rise for the invocation led by Mike Souza, Harvest Community Church.
Greetings, it's a privilege to be with you tonight. Join me in prayer. God of light, God of love, God of life, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all your blessings, the successes in our community, and even the challenges that bring growth. I thank you for this city council and ask that you endow each one with wisdom, courage, and strength. Be with them in their deliberations to seek guidance from beyond their experience in order to make decisions for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in the leadership of this city council. Give them insight to lead with integrity so that their decisions will reflect what is good, true, and beautiful. Help them to keep the big picture in view while remembering the needs of the individual in our community. Grant each member of this council with the humility of a servant's heart. I ask these things in your good and gracious name. Amen.
Amen. Would you please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember C.C. Gallegos.
Ready, salute. One nation under God.
Thank you very much for that. We will now move on to the approval of the agenda. I asked my colleagues if they had any additions or corrections to the agenda. If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I so move to approve the agenda. I'll second.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Evans, second by Council Member Rodriguez. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We now move on to public comment. The first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be asked but are not required to identify themselves and state the subject of their comments. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold a comment until that item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is opened. The council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusion should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. Alicia, do we have any written or Zoom comments?
We have no written public comment, Mayor. Mark?
Anybody on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom? No one on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay. Is there any members of the public wishing to step up to the podium and make a comment?
Come on in front. You can come towards the front.
Right. Right over here.
You'll get used to it after a while. And speak into the microphone, please.
Hello, council members. I'm Mayor Garcia. Hello, council members. I'm Mayor Garcia. I'm here today to invite you all to our Furman High School, our Furman High School College and Career Fair on October 17th at 9 a.m. Our school is hosting this event because we believe in education.
Hi,
Everybody who's on the phone should mute themselves, please, so we can hear the presenter. If you're on the phone, please mute yourself. Go ahead.
And that is all.
Well, thank you very much. That is October 17th at what time was that again?
9 a.m. It's 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Okay. We'll make every effort to be there. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Is anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Yes, sir. Pásale.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Hope you're doing well today. First, thank you for this time to speak with you all. My name is Johnny Mendez. I'm a program manager with the Youth Leadership Institute, a nonprofit that focuses on youth engagement and leadership in the communities that we all serve. I've had the opportunity to partner and work alongside the youth here in Madera for the past 6 years. Very thankful for it. Youth here are amazing. With them, they're unified, also within the Youth Commission, which we're going to share more about with you in a minute or two. Today, I just wanted to share that I reintroduce myself. I've sent some emails to you all to hopefully break some bread with you all and have some coffee and share more about that in person, hopefully. I also have my colleague here, Yvette Flores, who is a coordinator for Youth Commission here in Madera. I'll pass the rest of my time and the mic over to her, she's on Zoom.
Yes, hello, Council. Thank you so much for having us here today. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a recap of what we've done in the past with the Youth Commission and what we're hoping to do when we revamp in January. So if some of you might remember, we collectively done this book. It's called the Madera Youth Commission Resource and Activity Book. Inside there is lots of COVID research and also activity books. So right here is a word search. I'm not sure if you can see that very well on screen, but this was our previous edition, and we also made a second one, which is very similar in vein of spreading COVID awareness, resources, and also some fun, some activities and recipes that were all created by the young people in Madera. And so these are the projects we worked on before, and we're hoping to do something similar again. And the main purpose of the Youth Commission is to have their voices heard and trying to embark on projects that they really want to. So these activity books were actually something that the young people came up with on their own and something that they were able to organize and distribute also. And so if you want to see the new editions of the books, they are currently located at the County Library and at the John Wells Youth Center, as well as some of the high schools are being distributed through Johnny's classes at Madera High and Madera South. And so just some things to expect from us, myself and Johnny. Moving forward, we're hoping to revamp the Youth Commission. So we're currently in the recruitment process. So you might be getting some emails from Johnny and I to meet with you and have discussions about maybe possible appointments of young people that you might have in your space that would want to be youth commissioners, and also giving you the applications that we recruit from commissioners that might want to represent your council. And so with that, if you have questions, and also be looking out for that email from Johnny and I, and I'm going to toss back if there's time left to Johnny if I missed anything.
Great. Thank you, Yvette. So yes, look out for emails from us. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and having some coffee and seeing how we can best support you there with the Youth Commission in Madera. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you both for your presentation. Thank you. Is there any other members of the public wishing to speak on any item not on the agenda?
Good evening, Council and Mayor Garcia. I would like to just have the council be aware that we have the advisor from Furman High, Sylvian Guano, if you'd like to stand up. And we have 6 other Furman High students here representing today with your speaker. If you could also stand up so the council can see who you are, that would like to, if you have a moment to attend their event October 17th. We'd like to thank you for coming out today. Thank you. And with that, I'm not sure if Madera High wanted to come up for public comment.
Hi, and good evening, Mayor Garcia and members of the council. My name is Christina Rebel, and I am the current ASB president at Madera High School. We are here on behalf of the Madera High student leadership team and seek of approval for the homecoming parade along Howard Road, as we have previously done in 2019.
So we are excited to announce our homecoming theme, which is going to be Coyotes Level Up, which is based around video games from new to old video games. This will be showcased throughout the parade and we'll have different floats. Additionally, we are excited to have our Blue Pyramid Elementary students participate in the parade, which is a great tradition for Madera High. Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to that. Are there any further public comments? Seeing none, then we will close public comment and we will move on to presentations. Dennis, are you online? Dennis Smith, are you online? Mark, do you see him online?
I do not see him.
Okay, we can come back to him if we need to. We will now move on to Councilmember Gallegos. You're going to recognize Tim Rich.
Come on up, Mr. Richey. Council and Mayor Garcia and the public, I'd like to let you know this is a very special gentleman. I got on council 6 years ago and appointed him to be my ADA commissioner. And with that, he has served every meeting. He's been an outreach to the chair, who's also in the audience, DJ Becker, if you could raise your hand. And we, as council members, put commissioners on every board that we have because we can't sit at all these meetings on top of the meetings that we have to. So we appoint people that we respect and can really trust to be there and be our voice for those commissions. Mr. Richey is a very dear friend and has represented me and District 1 so well. And with that, I am truly blessed to have him serve for 6 years on this commission. He is so involved in so much in the city that he said, you know, Councilwoman Gallegos, if you have somebody else that could represent, I've got a lot on my plate and I have a lot to do from here to there. And someday I would hope Mr. Richey would be sitting up there as a council member. So mark my words, he's a leader in this community and he will be someday up there with the rest of us. So Mr. Richey, on behalf of the City Council and District 1, we thank you for representing us so greatly. And it was so deeply appreciated for the time. And it's all volunteer if you didn't know, this time for all these meetings. So thank you, Mr. Richey.
Mr. Richey, if you'd like to step up to the microphone, if you'd like to say something.
I'm got choked up. I'm honored to be here. I came to Madera at 21 years old from a great little town in Ponchatoula, Louisiana, and has been here for 28 years now, 28 and a half years. And no other city, the city has provided me I got a great house, a pretty wife, three great kids, and lived the American dream. And I work for a district that I love and got to know Councilman CC, and I appreciate you believing in me. And I've taught a council person. I played basketball with a council person, and I've had a wonderful time being part of Madera community. And it's great. It's a great city to be a part of. It's a great city that you can get involved in and really make an impact. And all you got to do is believe and become active and go to work a little bit. And I think we're on the right path with Madera. I think we're doing a lot of things right in Madera and a lot of good things are happening. So it's my honor. And thank you guys for the opportunity to do this. And I'm still around Madera. I haven't left anything. So I'm still hanging out. So anyway, but thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. It's always great to have volunteers serving their community. Also, would you like to make your presentation?
Yes.
Rosa Hernández Bautista. ¿Está aquí? Pásale, por favor.
Good evening, council, members of the public, residents. Thank you everyone for being here. Today, I would like to recognize the residents of Madera. Today we are presenting a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. We have individuals here that represent the various communities of indigenous populations, including Mixtecos, Zapotecos, Triquis that reside in Madera. We have also representatives from organizations that serve indigenous communities, including la Mesa Directiva de Santa María Tindú, el Centro Binacional para el Desarrollo Indígena Oaxaqueño, and el Consulado de México en Fresno. And I would like if you could step up to the podium. Please come forward. Si pueden venir al frente. And anyone that's coming as an individual is also very welcome to come forward. And I would like to read this proclamation from the city of Madera on behalf of the mayor and the council members, our proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas the city of Madera recognizes that the indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial. And whereas the city of Madera values the many contributions made to our community through indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and likewise values the deep cultural contribution that has substantially shaped the character of the city of Madera and our region. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And whereas Indigenous People Day shall be used to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous peoples and to celebrate the thriving culture and value of the Indigenous people of our region and contribute to our city. Now, therefore, it be resolved, the City Council of the City of Madera does hereby proclaim October 10, 2022 as Indigenous Peoples Day and calls upon public officials, educators, businesses, communities, volunteers, and all the people of Madera, California to observe this day to honor and celebrate the thriving cultures and positive values of the Indigenous people of our region. Signed this 5th day of October, 2022. Thank you.
Pues muy buenas tardes a todos y pues solamente quiero decirles que este es un día muy especial, es un día importante para la comunidad indígena porque es así como se da el reconocimiento a la contribución laboral y cultural de nuestra comunidad indígena. Pues muchas gracias a todos por este reconocimiento tan importante para la comunidad y también especialmente gracias a nuestra concejal Elsa Mejía por haber pues contribuido para llegar a este logro que para nuestra comunidad indígena pues es un paso más. Muchas gracias.
Would anybody else like to make a comment?
On behalf of Mesa Directiva Santa Maria Tindú, who's been in Madera since 1996, and we have shared our culture, our fine arts and music and food, of course, for the last 3 decades plus. We have learned to live and share as a family in the community that we serve. And so thank you for all. And I would like to thank you all for contributing and for counting on the indigenous communities to have a diverse community. Thank you.
I would like to, if there's no other comments, I would like to invite everybody to step to the front so we can take a picture. Thank you.
Eso porque está el tomate. Un tomatero con todo lo de Oaxaca también.
Be scared. Be scared.
Muchas gracias por venir hoy. Next, we will move on to number 4, Madera Community College, Lumina $1 Million Community College Challenge. We have with us Dr. Reina. He's on Zoom. And I believe Maciel is also in here. Maricela, if you'd like to step up to the podium, and then we'll have President Reina, Dr. Angel Reina on Zoom. Dr. Reina?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Garcia and council members. Thank you so much for placing us on the agenda, allowing us some time to just share the wonderful news of winning the Lumina $1 Million Challenge. It was a national competition. We beat out all the other community colleges in the nation, so we're very proud of that. We've taken the philosophical approach, as you've seen from other folks. Education is a powerful thing, can help with economic mobility. And we want to make sure, you know, as the newest community college in the state of California, we want to be the best, and we're striving towards that. And I think we're demonstrating that because our community that we serve deserves that approach. Having said that, I do want to, you know, thank you all for partnering with us, because we wouldn't be where we're at without the partnership of the city helping us out with transportation, infrastructure. I know Mayor Pro Tem Evans has worked with Dr. Marie Harris on Juneteenth. So there's a history of us collaborating together, and we're stronger together because of that. And I hope we continue that great tradition moving forward. I do want to allow the space for Maricela, because we were very fortunate. She submitted a video, and we're fortunate that she was willing to share her story with us, because she didn't have to. And it's a powerful video. If you haven't seen it, it's about a 2-minute clip. But we also do have another video to show the celebration and the announcement. And I believe you'll see a familiar face there as well when we do show it. But I do want to open up the floor for Maricela if she does want to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me in to represent Madera Community College. In the video, I shared my journey. as a student, as a mother, as a worker, as an immigrant. And I am sure it reflects the journey of many, many, many people in our community. It motivates others to pursue a better life through education. Madera Community College won the $1 million by Lumina Foundation. It's a word of many, a teamwork. Amazing. Now, what is next? Madera Community College is working and contribute with the community for the benefit of the current and future students. I would like to see more adult students at college earning their certificates, associates, transferring to the university, and continue to see stories like mine. Thank you so much, Madera Community College, for the support and for to be here.
Maricela, you are continuing your education, is that correct?
Yes, I earned an associate degree from Transfer and 3 certificates, and I am attending Fresno Pacific University, majoring in business administration.
Congratulations.
I start in 2017 knowing 0 English, and I had 3 children, a full-time job, and it is hard, but not impossible. And yes, I am so proud of myself, and the video reflects that we can do it as long as we want to do it. Thank you. Thank you, President Reina.
Doctor.
Thank you, Maricela. Mayor Garcia, if the council would like to see the video, we could play it. It's just where they made the announcement, and like I said, you'll see a familiar face there.
We're back. Earlier this year, we asked community colleges a very important question. How would $1 million help you tell your story?
Hundreds of colleges responded and shared their thoughts on what makes their college special and expressed their vision for transforming their brand.
It was difficult, but we narrowed it down to 10 finalists, each with a compelling story to tell.
And in round 2 of the challenge, each finalist submitted a video about their college's promise to adult students. And the videos did not disappoint.
No, they didn't. They brought to life the passion and purpose of each college with messages that were creative, heartfelt, and inspiring. And they focused on breaking down barriers and making important connections. Now, let's recap our 10 finalists. Community College of Rhode Island, College of Eastern Idaho, Great Falls College, Montana State University, Houston Community College, Madera Community College,
County College of Morris, Long Beach City College, Northwest Shoals Community College, Minnesota State College, Southeast, and Madison Area Technical College. 9 of these schools will receive $100,000 in technical assistance to support their brand building and marketing efforts. But only 1 college will receive the $1 million top prize to bring their full vision to life.
So, after months of waiting, it's time to announce our $1 million winner. The winner of the $1 Million Community College Challenge is
We're anesthesiologists, surgeons, emergency medicine physicians, pain management specialists. We're the largest.
Thank you so much, Mayor Garcia, for allowing us this moment in space. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Councilmember Villegas, for joining us at that event. Much appreciated.
Thank you and congratulations on behalf of the City Council. Thank you. And Maricela, great job. Felicidades and good luck on your journey at Pacific University. Okay, soon enough. Thank you, Dr. Reina. We will now move on to introductions. Liliana Camacho, Administrative Assistant, Grants Department. Presentation by Marcela Zuniga.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mayor, council members. This evening, I would like to just quickly introduce our newest member to the Grants Division. Our Administrative Assistant, Liliana Camacho, has been on board with us since late August. It's just been a little over a month that we've had the pleasure of working with her. I will allow her an opportunity to share a little bit about herself. Liliana?
Hi, I'm actually a recent Fresno State graduate. I just got my degree in business management. I've lived in Madera all my life, so I'm really excited to be part of the group of people who better my community. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mayor.
Igualmente. So there are no workshops under item A. We will move on to the consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the council may request an item be removed from the consent calendar, and it will be considered separately. Alicia, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no written public comment, Mayor.
Okay, no members here.
And no one on Zoom.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark. I will now close public comment on this item. I'll ask for discussion and a motion from my colleagues.
So move to approve to present the consent calendar as presented. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Get that out.
I second it.
I believe Mr. Villegas did, but that's okay.
Okay.
We can have more than one. Motion to approve the consent calendar by Councilmember Gallegos, second by Councilmember Villegas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The ayes have it. We will now move on to item C, public hearing. On public hearing for annexation number 11, track 20S02, Pecan Square subdivision into Community Facilities District number 2005-1, Public Services and Related Actions. Mr. Robert, Mr. Smith, do you have this item?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. I'll bring up the presentation. Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Senior Planner Robert Smith. Should be the presentation for Pecan Square. This project represents annexation number 11 for Pecan Square subdivision into the Community Facilities District. This is a way to create special tax for public service funding throughout the city when generated by new development. The district to be annexed is highlighted. It's to the south of the city, and the map shows other annexations previously brought into the district. The map was approved for 112 lot residential subdivision with conditions of approval requiring the applicant to make this annexation as part of that application. The assessment would be $524.41 per unit for the new annexation, and the recommendation is firstly to adopt the resolutions, including a resolution for City Council authorizing the annexation of the territory into the CFD and levy of special tax, submitting the levy of tax to the qualified electors, a resolution the City Council calling a special election, submitting to the voters for the annexation, the proposition regarding the annual levy of special taxes with annexation number 11 to finance the public services. And secondly, the council will conduct a special election of the qualified electors for annexation number 11 for the city's CFD, a declaration certificate of the results thereof. Thirdly, the council adopt a resolution of the council making the findings, certifying the results of the election, and adding the territory identified as annexation number 11 into the CFD. And I apologize, the slide shows annexation number 12 where it should be 11. Thank you. That concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I believe the applicant is available as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Alicia, would you make your declaration, please?
Mayor, if you could please open up the public hearing first.
I now open the public hearing for annexation number 11 regarding the annexation of territory to Community Facilities CFD number 2005-01.
I declare that the notice of public hearing was published on September 24th, 2022.
Thank you very much. I now open the public hearing to protests, comments, and questions from interested parties. Is anyone present or on Zoom who wishes to make a comment regarding this item? Alicia, are there any written protests, or do you have any declarations?
I have, excuse me, Mayor. I declare no written protests were received by the city, that there are less than 12 registered voters within the Community Facilities District, that written consents to holding the Community Facilities District elections today have been received from all landowners within the proposed annexation number 11, and that I concur with the holding of the special election for annexation number 11.
Thank you very much. I now close the public hearing. Is there any discussions or questions from the council? Seeing none and hearing none, is there a motion to adopt resolutions 1 and 2 of the this annexation request?
Mayor, move we adopt item C1-1 and C1-2.
Second.
Motion to adopt the resolution by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Villegas. All those in favor say aye.
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 Take 4 separately.
What was that? So all, the motion passes since the resolution is adopted. City Clerk, are calling you to conduct the election.
2 ballots have been received. I now close the election and announce the results. Two envelopes in one. Give me 1 minute.
You can do the Jeopardy theme.
Okay. Hilda?
Yes.
So in one of the envelopes, I received a petition and map for annexation number 11 for CFD 2005-1. And in the other envelope, I received an official ballot. So one is a ballot and one is a petition.
I think,
petition.
How many voters are in that district? Mr. Smith, do you know?
Is that 12?
I believe it's less than 12, and I'm under the assumption that it is only the single landowner. That may be incorrect. The applicant should be on the phone, so they may be able to confirm the number of landowners. I believe it was just one.
Is that person present on Zoom? I don't see anybody.
What is the person's name? It was Matthew Tran, and I believe he was calling in.
I don't see anybody calling.
Mayor, perhaps Mr. Smith can confirm that there is only one owner, and if that is the case, then there are no votes, if you will, and so the annexation would be effective. If we could take a recess and maybe there can be somebody can confirm that, and we'll go on to the next hearing, if that's possible.
Yeah, we can call a recess.
On that item only.
This item and go on to the next one while we confirm. Okay. And we shall do that. We'll call a recess on this annexation number 11. We will now move on to the Community Facilities District public hearing and election process for CFD 2005-1, annexation number 12, October 5th, 2022. I now open the public hearing for annexation number 12 regarding the annexation of territory to Community Facilities District CFD number 2005-01. Alicia, do you have something to declare?
I do, Mayor. Let me switch gears here. I'm sorry. I declare that the notice of public hearing was published on September 24th, 2022.
Okay, thank you very much. Robert, do you also have this item?
Yes, Mayor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. This project represents the annexation for annexation number 12 for the Crown Tozer subdivision into the Community Facilities District. The district to be annexed is to the east of the city. The map shows other annexations previously into the district. The map was approved for a 63-lot residential subdivision, again with conditions requiring the applicant to come back and the same unit cost per unit for the annexation of $524.41. The recommendation, the same as previously, is a resolution for the City Council authorizing the annexation of number 12 of the territory into the CFD, the levy of special tax and submitting the levy of tax to the qualified electors, resolution of the Council of the City calling the special election and submitting to the voters for the annexation of the proposition regarding the annual levy of special taxes to finance the public services. Secondarily, the Council conduct the special election of the qualified electors to annexation 12 of the CFD and the declaration and certification of the results thereof. Thirdly, Council adopt the resolution of the Council making the findings to certify the results of the election and adding the territory identified as annexation 12 into the CFD. Thank you. Again, the applicant should be online and available for questions.
Thank you very much, Robert. Are there any, Alicia, are there any written protests, and do you have any declarations? Or any public comment?
I declare no written protests were received by the city, that there are less than 12 registered voters within the Community Facilities District, and that written consents to holding the Community Facilities District elections today have been received from all landowners within the proposed annexation number 12, and that I concur with the holding of the special election for annexation number 12.
Thank you very much. I should have backed up a second there. Are any public comments from anyone here in the room before we move on? Thank you very much. I now close the public hearing. Is there any discussion regarding this item from my colleagues? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt resolutions 1 and 2?
Mayor, move to adopt item C2-1 and C2-2.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Gallegos. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. The ayes have it. Alicia, do you have any further declarations?
Mayor, 3 ballots have been received. I now close the election and announce the results. And City Attorney Montoya, I received a ballot and 2 petitions for this item for annexation 12.
Did you receive any no votes?
No.
I think we're encountering the same question. We need to determine if in fact there's a majority of voters in favor of this. So Council, on both items, you opened the public hearing, you closed the public hearing, you adopted the first 2 resolutions, and I would recommend that you refer the results of the election back to the city clerk and staff, and that they can return next time, and they can just place it on consent calendar and they can do it by a report at that time.
If I may, Mayor and City Attorney, both title reports for both annexations identify the applicants as the owner, as a single owner for both of these subdivisions, as information that you're requesting.
Okay, so if that is the case, then you can proceed to vote on this one, since this one's on your plate right now, and then go back to the first one, to annexation number 11, and approve the resolution declaring the results of the elections.
Thank you very much, Hilda, for that. So going back to my colleagues, is there a motion to adopt the resolution declaring the results?
Mayor, move to approve item C2-4.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve this item by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Rodriguez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. The motion to adopt the resolution certifying the results of the election and adding the territory in annexation number 12 CFD 2005-01 has passed by a vote of 7-0. We will now move back to annexation number 11. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution declaring the results?
Mayor, move to approve item C1-4.
I'll second.
Motion to approve item C14 by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Rodriguez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you very much for that report, Robert. Thank you very much, Alicia, for helping us out. And Hilda, thank you very much for your guidance on that. There are no petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. We now move on to administrative reports. Item E1 is the identification of improvements for inclusion in the Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program grant for the use on the Caltrans Downtown Madera CAPM Capital Preventive Maintenance and council direction regarding the possible use of alternate source of funds should it be found necessary. I believe, Mr. Helmut, you have this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, I'll go ahead and start the presentation. I'll open it up here. Okay, as you said, this is for the identification of improvements for inclusion in the Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program grant for use on the Caltrans Downtown Madera CAPM and council direction regarding possible use of alternate source of funds. A little bit of background. On August 17th, council approved retaining Mark Thomas and Company to prepare a grant application for the Reconnecting Communities grant and as many as 2 other grants in addition to that one. The Reconnecting Communities pilot grant application is in process and it is due to be submitted on October 13th. For a little bit of information on the grant itself, it is the first ever federal program dedicated to reconnecting communities that were previously cut off from economic opportunities by transportation infrastructure. Funding supports planning grants and capital construction grants, as well as technical assistance to restore community connectivity through removal, retrofit, mitigation, or replacement of eligible transportation infrastructure facilities. This particular facility is ideal for this grant. It talks about the reconnecting communities. The city of Madera is essentially bisected by multiple facilities. SR 99 bisects it east and west, and the 145 or Yosemite Avenue bisects it again north and south on the east side of the city. In addition, the railroad tracks also do that. So this particular grant is ideal for that. Address that particular concern. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss improvements proposed for the inclusion in the grant application, and also to seek direction as to council willingness to assign local funding to the grant application should an alternate source of funds be found to be necessary. Right now, the proposed improvements on the project are wider sidewalks from E to B and A to high. I'm going to go ahead and show an exhibit coming up that illustrates where those locations are. Rectangular flashing beacons at A and B streets, decorative lighting as we proposed it. The existing lighting in downtown would be removed and replaced with, or as we're proposing it, the decorative lighting would replace existing lights and then fill in gaps where lighting does not currently exist. It would also include landscape and irrigation, shade trees, and certain sidewalks and medians. The medians would be conservative, of course. The medians are currently part of the Caltrans project as they're proposing it. Improved drainage to accommodate wider sidewalks, high visibility crosswalks with stamped concrete at the intersection, additional other hardscape improvements, and street furniture, such as benches, trash receptacles, and potentially banner stands. And I don't know that there's any other enhancements that we can identify at this point, but I've added a last bullet point in here. So if any other improvements are identified, that would allow the city manager to go ahead and add those to the grant and or to the minute order that's associated with this particular presentation. This is the exhibit that I indicated would become. It's a bit small. It's a very large graphic that was reduced down, but the areas that you see in red, that's where the sidewalk or the curb and gutter is proposed to be moved into the street to reduce the street width from 73 feet to 68 feet, and as a result of that, increase the width of the sidewalks. Some of the highlights of the wider sidewalk. As I indicated on the previous slide, it would take the street width from 73 to 68. This is just saying that the sidewalk width varies from 68 to 73 in that particular bullet. The widening allows for enhanced pedestrian amenities while providing the same road capacity with the road diet, that is. The wider sidewalks was one of the possibilities that was listed in the 2018 DOMA report, the Downtown Madera report that was prepared by the Arts Society. And that was a fairly extensive report, and the transportation plan that is a basis for this grant relied upon a bunch of the stuff that came out of that particular report from DOMA. As discussed at previous council meetings, if the road diet were to not work out over time, say 10 years or so, the project could be reversed, but it was at a cost. Widening the sidewalks will increase that cost. But one of the things that we as staff believe, and checking with council, is that we as a city will find a way to go ahead and make certain that road diet works for the long term. At present, the city staff is looking at adjusting the traffic signal that's proposed at Lake Central and 4th Street to go ahead and accommodate additional traffic that may come off of off of Yosemite onto Lake and then onto 4th Street. So we're already looking at ways to go ahead and enhance the capacity in other spots to go ahead and minimize and hopefully remove the possibility of anyone ever considering removing the road diet. As I noted before, the widening requires relocating the curb into the existing roadway. Caltrans, they've been very accommodating and helpful with regard to this project, but they have indicated with regard to this particular improvement that there are some risks involved, and they did want to go ahead and make certain that the city is aware of them. One of those risks is if the sidewalk project is approved to widen it, Caltrans will have to do additional design and survey work not originally envisioned with the current project. They will need to wait until the grant is approved or awarded before they move down that road. So depending upon that, there could be it'll be additional work and additional funding associated with that. As of this morning, Caltrans has indicated that they are willing to go ahead and go to the California Transportation Commission to go ahead and seek additional funding in the design portion of the project so that they can, in fact, go ahead and do the sidewalk widening. They have been expeditiously working towards any way that can assist the city. If the award is not announced in a timely manner, there may not be enough time in the project schedule to complete the additional design. When I was speaking to the Caltrans representative, he was concerned that if the award came in, say, June, we're hoping that the award will come in December, at latest January, but we don't know. The award, the grant package does not currently state a time frame in which they will return the results of the review of the grants. Additionally, at the time of the award, Caltrans will also determine if the current environmental would require additional studies or revalidation of the environmental work that's been done thus far. Right-of-way, same concern. If additional right-of-way acquisition is needed, could delay the project. Nothing that the grant has looked at thus far requires additional right-of-way. This is just coming out of the DOMA report. It speaks to economic benefits of sidewalks. I won't go ahead and read this in detail, but it's just a reference that the DOMA report was looking at wider sidewalks as well. Funding for the Reconnected Communities grant. The grant has very specific requirements. Mark Thomas, our consultant, has provided insight and recommendations with regard to those requirements. One of the requirements is that a certain percentage of the project must be state or local funding. Another thing that Caltrans has done is to go ahead and meet the minimum ratio for the grant application. They have adjusted their ratio. They went back to their headquarters in Sacramento to make adjustments so that we had what we believe to be additional or sufficient grant funding, or excuse me, state funding for the project. They are willing to do that again if necessary. But the original project that Caltrans had was $13.4 million. At present, the grant is looking to add enhancements for about $3.6 million, bringing the total project up to around 18. I have that written here, around $18 million, $18.4 million. That requires a state funding of at least $3.6 million, and we are there at that point. We have some other questions that are outstanding on that, but I feel reasonably confident that we will get there. But these questions are the reasons that we're asking council for guidance with regard to additional funding being assigned to the project. So reasons for direction regarding this, we already talked about a little bit, but the grant application was performed on a accelerated time frame. Understanding of needs were changing, as I said earlier, just prior to the staff report being completed, and even to this day, we were learning new things to go ahead and address. Or actually, in this case, we got good news today, and we got good news just before the staff report was completed. Anyway, one of the reasons is increased design costs. Caltrans confirmed their ability to increase the funding, but until we get to the application, we want to be able to go ahead and make certain that we know where we can go with funding. Staff feels reasonably comfortable that funding has been addressed, but still has outstanding questions of Mark Thomas. I believe I mentioned that just a few moments ago as well. Possible sources, local transportation funds, Measure T, and general fund as a last ditch. But right now, what we know is our local transportation funds, LTF, has $4.1 million in unprogrammed funds that's currently available. If we need that, it would be staff's recommendation that we consider using that for any additional funding. Concluding remark, I've mentioned it before, but Caltrans has been very helpful. They have been doing their best to work as a very good teammate. We really appreciate their assistance. With that, tonight's action is considered discussion relative to the project list and the funding source. And our recommended action is to adopt a minute order approving the city's project list, or as may be amended, and then to provide direction regarding possible use of an alternate funding source should it be found necessary. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Keith, for that excellent report. It is certainly good news. Arnoldo, do you have anything to add on this?
I'm not certain that I have anything to add that Keith already hasn't kind of discussed, except that probably to emphasize that LTF at this point, that appears to be the most promising funding in terms of the city does have to contribute. Keith, am I correct in saying that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alicia, do we have any public comment from the public, either on Zoom or in the chambers?
Mayor, we have no written public comment.
Is there anyone in the public here in chambers who would like to ask any questions or make a comment on this item? Seeing none, I will close public comment, and I will move on to a discussion and our questions from my colleagues. Councilmember Montes.
I just had a real quick question, and I apologize, Keith, if I missed it. So in the report, you identified as the alternate funds to be $1 million, and out of a pot of 4.1 unprogrammed funds for the LTF. So that's the maximum all in is your estimation?
Well, I think I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the $1 million. I was giving that more kind of as a ballpark. If we needed additional funding, I believe that Caltrans will adjust their ratio of federal to state funding. But if we did need it, I picked it as a ballpark because we might go up as high as that. Generally speaking, we have about another $1.6 million in possible projects that need to be added to the grant. And I anticipate that we will be calling out such things as the roundabout and curb extensions to go ahead and get to the $5 million. Mark Thomas has done their best to pull anything and everything out of the downtown transportation plan to add to the project. And it turns out that the minimum $5 million is a lot relative to what we already have in there. So I'd call million just a ballpark. I apologize if I couldn't be more accurate.
No, because it's in the staff report, but in the presentation, I saw a couple different numbers, 2.6, 3.6.
Yeah.
So make sure that is an estimate, and obviously it can be a little higher, but it's not going to be all of a sudden it's a $10 million match that we have to do, right?
No, I don't see that. And I think the $1 million came from, we got the information kind of late, and I think that $1 million was the difference between the 2.6 and the 3.6 that you see in the slide earlier.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you, Keith, for that presentation. I know you, Arnoldo, and staff have been working really hard alongside Caltrans and all the other partners. I'm pretty confident. Well, can't say that I'm 100% confident, but I know that working with the chair of the California Transportation Commission, they also have a very good interest in making this happen. This is a pilot that I think would really resonate with communities such as ours. So I'm very excited to see this. As far as the funding, if it came to that with the LTF fund, if it had to go up to $1 million, I would hope that this council would feel comfortable in moving forward with that. This project has been probably in place for over a decade, 2 decades, if not, if memory serves me right. There's been several attempts of trying to do something with downtown. Now that this is a road diet and we have an opportunity to really enhance that downtown, I think this is a great opportunity, especially with all the funding coming together. I think we have a great opportunity to make something happen downtown. So I'm pretty excited. If direction would be to continue and move on that, then I would certainly move forward on that as well. And those are my comments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions. You did mention some of the risks that were that Caltrans had with the project. Is there any other risks? When I see the word risks, it seems like me a red flag, but do you have anything else besides that, Keith?
Not that I can think of. I use the word risk because Caltrans used the word risk. They have been they had considered the project to be a fairly accelerated effort already, and depending upon when the award of the grant comes along, they're a little bit worried that they might get to a point where they can't perform. It seems as though they have a hard set date. So we banking on that award coming in quickly, but again, the award authority hasn't stated a date. So I don't think, answering the question more directly, I can't think of any other risks.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. And I certainly do hope that this gets put into place and we could take action and we can make improvements to our downtown. It's been long overdue. I'm going to bring it back to my colleagues for a motion.
I'll move to approve item E1.
Second that.
Motion to approve item E1 by Councilmember Rodriguez, a second by Councilmember Montes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Unanimous. Thank you very much for that report, Keith.
Pleasure.
Well, let me put you back on the reports. You will do item E2, discussion and direction regarding developer request to add a rolled curb standard to the City of Madera standard plans and specifications.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is a developer request to add rolled curb standard to the City of Madera standard plans and specifications. The purpose of this meeting is to consider the request to add rolled curb to the City of Madera standard plans and specifications. Provide direction based upon staff report and discussion during this meeting. A little bit of background. Today, the city has a traditional 6-inch curb that's found throughout the community. The city does not currently have a rolled or wedge curb standard. Rolled or wedge curbs may have a number of advantages and disadvantages based upon input from the developer and neighboring communities. Here's a typical vertical curb, 6 inches tall. Difficult to cross over when you're attempting to parallel park. This is the example of a standard drawing for a rolled curb. This one here came from City of Fresno, I believe. These are a couple of rolled curb examples, just pictures. This is a wedge curb, and you'll note that it's fairly different from a rolled curb. A rolled curb is literally rolled, and a wedge is almost literally a wedge. And here are some wedge curb examples. You'll note for all of these, they move straight through the driveways without any adjustments. So I'll come back to that on the benefits. This is a street with wedge and vertical on both sides. Some of the advantages: they're less expensive to install. Long stretches of curb can be installed without the need to manually form separate driveways. They're easier to accommodate ADA accessibility behind the driveways. The ability to complete curb installation without risk and associated cost to move previously constructed driveways if they somehow do not align with future driveways. And then they help prevent water from weakening the substructure by not utilizing saw cuts to remove old curb and gutter for installation of new driveways. Again, not envisioned during the initial curb installation or construction. And they may help prevent wheel and tire damage to vehicles parking at the curb. So I'm just going to go back to, doesn't matter which one, I'll just hit the first one that I have. You'll note that the wedge curb, it's easy enough to go ahead and just pour a curb straight through everywhere. You start at the intersection, you just keep going, you pass driveways. So if this particular house you see on the upper left there was a little bit different than originally was planned on the design drawings, and it was shifted by 5 or 10 feet, under normal circumstances, a developer would have to go ahead and cut out the existing driveway that was constructed initially, re-pour that as vertical curve, or at least a portion of that, and then cut in the driveway just a little bit off. As they do that, there are different methods to do it. Some of them involve saw cutting the curb and then placing that back. And whenever you cut concrete, you take the chances of allowing water to infiltrate and get to the base of the road, and it can fall apart later. We have a standard that we follow that allows that to be reduced, but it's not completely out of the ballpark in terms of that water can get down there. Moving on to disadvantages, damage to the curb or sidewalk. Where sidewalk is contiguous to the curb, sidewalk is easily parked on, representing possible future repair costs to the city or the homeowner. Accessibility. Mounting of the curb and sidewalk can result in sidewalks being obstructed to pedestrian and wheelchair passage. Damage to street furniture. Street furniture is street lights, fire hydrants. Generally speaking, I've added valve boxes and other appurtenances in there. Anything that a car can easily get to, they might damage. Landscape damage. If it's a non-contiguous sidewalk, the cars can end up parking in planters or grass. And then vehicular damage. Depending upon the curb type or the design, owners of some low-profile cars may discover that their cars bottom out in the driveways, causing damage. Right here, we have examples of contiguous curb. On the left side, we have, that's a pretty standard example. On the right side, I believe that this might in fact be the city of Madera on 4th Street. That's where we have stamped concrete next to the curb. And then detached sidewalk, just what it means. You have the curb, then you have a planter strip, and then you have the sidewalk. Continuing on with the disadvantages, pedestrian safety. Vertical barrier curbs are generally recognized as a deterrent to leaving the travel way. Roller web curbs, by their design, represent less of a deterrent. I don't really see pedestrian safety as a major concern in subdivisions. The speed is low at 25 miles per hour. If you were to propose this type of curb on collectors and arterials, it would be a problem. It would not be supported from a safety standpoint. And then drainage. Rolled or wedge curbs are shorter than their standard curb counterpart. Shorter curb heights result in less stormwater runoff volume being retained in the street. So the standards, they range between, I think it was 3.5 inches all the way up to 4 inches, which is at least 1 inch or more below the existing vertical curb height. And what that means is when the water rises at 4 inches, it's no longer retained in the street. It starts to enter the yard or get on top of sidewalks. Adjacent agency experience. We actively checked in with the cities of Fresno and Clovis and also with Madera County. And what is published right now is Fresno has a wedge curb and Visalia has a rolled curb. We didn't contact Visalia directly. Our contact with the city of Fresno had actually worked with Visalia, and they provided some information on the rolled curb. Unpublished standards, Clovis and Madera County have wedge curb standards. Now getting into the input received, accessibility mounting concerns that were expressed. Fresno and Clovis did indicates concerns with the accessibility mounting. Fresno and Clovis have both seen damage to street furniture as a result of that. And Clovis indicated that they had a number of issues with regard to the actual curb itself holding up, being damaged. As far as Madera County and Visalia, there were no concerns expressed or volunteered. We really didn't receive anything on Visalia, but Madera County, the question was asked and they didn't have it. They didn't express any concerns. Street furniture, yes, Fresno and Clovis has seen that. I mentioned that in the previous slide, of course. And then no concern was volunteered by Madera County and Visalia. Maintenance costs, yes, Fresno and Clovis and Visalia apparently do have maintenance costs as a result to damage to the curb or street furniture, and no concern was expressed by Madera County. Drainage, Clovis made a point of talking about the drop inlets. In the Clovis, Fresno area, the cities don't actively manage the flood control. They have a flood control district, and the flood control district apparently requires that drop inlets within neighborhoods be spaced closer to account for the fact that the streets can't hold as much water. We sought police department input. The department doesn't have any concerns, but neither does the city have any current roll or wedge curb in the city. If there were enforcement requirements, it's indicated that the city does not currently have to staff to go ahead and enforce violations. The ADA Advisory Council did not bring that or did not get with the Advisory Council prior to this meeting. But should council choose to go to a second meeting and consider approving the standard, I will meet with the ADA Advisory Council on October 18th to discuss it with them and seek input. Now, potential options, should a curb be approved. There are a number of different ways to go ahead and mitigate or reduce or possibly eliminate concerns that were mentioned earlier in the report. One of those is allow wedge curb rather than roll curb. Fresno, Clovis, and Madera apparently use wedge curb. And it may be that one of those, it may be that the wedge curb is less jarring, but they do prefer the wedge curb. City of Fresno installs base rock underneath the curb and the sidewalk when the sidewalk is contiguous to the curb. The reason they require that is if cars mount the curb and park on the sidewalk, the base rock provides an additional support to prevent the sidewalk from collapsing into softer material underneath it. Also can require meter boxes to be traffic rated. Meter boxes typically are not traffic rated if the vehicles are too heavy on those, the box lid and the boxes can crush. And then Fresno protects their street furniture by using vertical curve. I did not see the standard on it, but more than likely what it means is the vertical curve is installed in advance of and on the leading and the lagging edge of the improvements, so that vehicles don't easily back into or drive into the street furniture. And then protect pedestrians to use the park strip between curb and gutter. This bullet here, it's there, but as I indicated earlier, the velocity on neighborhoods or the speed of cars in neighborhoods isn't generally that fast, but the council can consider doing additional things to protect pedestrians or reduce the potential for cars parking on sidewalks. And then enforcement, when practical, utilize enforcement. Alternatives, if there's some uncertainty about it, the council can adopt a standard rolled or wedge curb with or without the options as a pilot program. That might be for, as an example, 2 years to test it out, see how it goes. Tonight's action, consider discussion and provide staff direction on future steps. And if council wishes to move forward, we would bring this to probably the November 2nd meeting so that I can go ahead and incorporate any comments from the ADA into that report. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Keith. Alicia, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have no written public comment, Mayor.
Is there any member of the public wishing to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Pásale.
Mayor Garcia, council members, my name is Mike Pistoresi, DMP Development, 2001 Howard Road in Madera. Keith and I have been going around on this issue for quite some time. The subdivision that I live in is currently 20 years old. We have rolled curb in our subdivision. We've had no maintenance issues. As to one of the points that Keith brought up about potential damage to the sidewalk, if you're not aware, usually the city of Madera requires the homeowner to repair or replace damaged sidewalk at their own expense. The city typically does not replace damaged sidewalk within a subdivision. This either rolled or wedge curb is fine. I know that Keith leans more towards a wedge curb than he does a rolled curb. It does allow us some flexibility within the subdivision of not having to go back and cut curb and gutter. And typically after we've laid the asphalt down, which butts directly against the curb, when we cut the curb and gutter and demolish it in order to pour a new curb and gutter in a different location, we create a weak spot in that curb and gutter. And we can't always guarantee exactly where the driveways are going to fall. Currently, what we do is when we extrude curb and gutter, we make allowances for those driveways based on our best guess and what we plan. But in about 30% of the cases, we have to go back and make adjustments in that drive approach because it doesn't exactly line up with the garage. As far as the expense of putting it in, it is less expensive to put it in, but it allows us much more flexibility. I used it in my own personal subdivision, as I said, which I've lived in 20 years. It's used, wedge or rolled curb is used throughout the county and all the new subdivisions for different reasons. But primarily it's a great way to go. It's much easier. We don't have to worry about your wife or your husband running into the curb and damaging your wheels on your brand new car. And typically people don't drive up on the sidewalk, although they do here in Madera in some cases, drive up on the sidewalk, park on lawns. But as far as traffic control goes through the subdivisions, all the new subdivisions are being required to install traffic calming devices, which basically are curb protrusions, which go out into the street and cause traffic to slow down at those portions of the street. So as far as any danger to pedestrians, I see that as very minimal. Does anyone have any questions of me?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I do have a question. You mentioned that your subdivision does have the rolled or wedged.
No, my subdivision has rolled.
So I've seen does Montecito Park or does any other subdivision have the rolled or wedged curb?
I'm not certain. I believe Montecito Park does, but I'm not certain about others.
Okay, so I think it's more of an aesthetic appeal is basically, and obviously the cost, but also to lessen the possible weakness of the structure. Is that what you said earlier? That typically you have to cut once you pour the curb, then you have to cut to adjust for the driveway. Does that create weaknesses in that cutting?
Yes. When we pour curb and gutter, it's called a monolithic pour, which is one continuous pour. And because the rock and the sand are all intertwined throughout that pour, it creates strength. And when we have to go back and cut it, we weaken the plane and also weaken the curb and gutter. And eventually water will begin to seep under the curb and could damage the street structure or cause the curb to collapse. It's not real common, but it does happen. And it is a point of contention. But as I've said before, Keith and I have been going around on this for a long time, and he's against it and I'm for it. And I'd like to see it come into the city of Madera other than just in private subdivisions such as mine. And I believe that would improve the aesthetics.
No, I certainly agree. Obviously in my community, I do see that the vertical curve certainly helps keeping cars. Now with with the shortage of homes, I think you have multi-families living together. And a lot of times you have multiple cars. And one of the things that I see also is it's easier for cars to just ramp up. Now it doesn't really matter if it's a vertical curve or not. I think it's happening more often now than before. And I don't know if it's just the fact that there's more people living in a household that have more cars and they can't park. There's not enough parking in those areas.
One of the things that we'll be doing in our new subdivision, Vineyard West, is we're going to, the CC&Rs are really important in a subdivision. And one of the things that I've noticed is the amount of cars. People don't seem to use their garages to park their cars in anymore. They want to use their garages to store their stuff. And so one of the things that we're going to do is install CC&Rs in our new subdivision that are going to require the homeowner to park their cars within the garage and within the driveway. This will reduce the amount of parking on streets. Because if you look at the standard garage, and it's a 2-car garage and you've got a 2-car driveway, that'll hold 4 cars off the street. It just bothers me to drive through a subdivision and have it look like a parking lot at night. And so we're trying to come up with a method to well, we're not going to completely alleviate it, but certainly help with it and reduce the amount of vehicles that are parked within the street, which also reduces the width of the street, causes accidents with people running into cars when they've had a little bit too much to drink. But that's coming in my new subdivision, which would be CC&Rs that require the use of the garage to park the vehicles in and within the driveway before you can park a vehicle in the street.
So one last question, Mr. Mayor. So we've touched on the integrity of the actual curb when you pour it. Now, how would you address the issues with water? obviously when water runs, and obviously it spreads out in different areas, and also the street sweeper. I mean, obviously that's been some concerns as far as when you street sweep, that may go into lawns. How would you address that there?
Well, I have no answer for that because I haven't even thought about it. But I can tell you, as far as the drainage aspect goes, we install adequate storm drains now. We can increase the number of drop inlets, which would handle more water, and solve that problem. But as far as the street sweeper goes, we use a street sweeper in our subdivision. It doesn't blow anything up on the lawns. Ours, of course, is a private street sweeper. We don't utilize city services there. So I can only tell you from my own experience.
So you don't use the city? What a shame. You should use a city street sweeper.
The city won't come in and sweep the streets, even though we pay that fee.
Thank you for paying the fee.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Mayor Pro Tem Evans?
Oh, sir, I have listened to you, and the traditional is the squared one, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. In my area, I see cars parked up on the yard. I'm in District 4. Okay. I see cars parked up on the yard. I've seen people come in, as you said, they may be intoxicated. One gentleman, he leaped up. Well, I don't know, he didn't leap. He just kind of drove his car, and it was heisted up on the curb as well as on the street. And it's the squared kind. Now, for me to have the roll, that's even worse because he should just drive right on up in the yard. We've had cars to just jump the curb and go right up into the neighborhood, in the actual yards. So for me, I'm just old school. So I'm really inclined for the traditional, because I just see that in the area that I'm in, the children are already having to walk in the streets because a lot of us, we don't have curbs. So with it being rolled, they would still just drive right on up in the yard. So we would end up with cars in the yard as well as on the street. So that's my take on it right there. I'm just really kind of skeptical about.
Well, the older section of town, the older section of town too is differently than the new subdivisions which are being constructed.
Yeah, I understand.
The streets are typically a little bit wider and don't have traffic calming devices, which are now being required to slow traffic down within the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But you just can't fix stupid. I mean, there's people that are gonna do things that are crazy anyway.
Yeah,
But
I just want to make sure that the children that are out there walking, when they walk on the sidewalk, they have an actual sidewalk to walk on and not have the roll portion to where it's just so much easier to drive up in and destroy even the water faucets or whatever the case may be. So that's just my take on it.
Well, I understand your concern, and remember that this is not something new. Others, if you go to the Bay Area, they all use rolled or wedge curb in the Bay Area and all the subdivisions. Clovis uses rolled or wedge curb. Fresno, all of Madera County, they're going to this because it's easier. It's easier to construct. It provides more integrity because it's a monolithic pour, and we're not going back and cutting it afterwards. We can just pick wherever we want to put the driveway and start pouring it from the edge of the curb. So it's nothing new. It's been around a long time. It just has never been adopted in the city of Madera. And I know Keith is dead set against it, but I'd certainly like to see you at least give it a fair shot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bailey. No, I'm going to call on you.
Yeah, but he's going away. We're just telling Mike to come back.
I'm sorry.
We're not done with you.
Oh, you're done with me? Okay.
No.
Oh, you're not done with me? Okay. Thought you said you were done with me.
Yeah. Councilwoman Gallegos? Okay. My question, you said it's a straight pour, the roll.
Called monolithic pour.
Yes.
Meaning one pour.
One pour.
Yeah.
And so my question is, right now in the city of Madera, we do have trees that were planted that are lifting up our curbs. Now we're planting trees now that roots are going down and not out. But we do have residents sometimes that will plant a tree that they shouldn't plant that will bring up the cement. So would it compromise that kind of a pour if we have to cut out a section that starts to lift because of roots of a tree?
Oh, anytime you cut concrete, you're gonna damage it. There's no question about it. Typically now, when we do a subdivision, we just put 1 yard tree in. We're not doing street trees like we used to do. So we don't really have the problem with trees lifting sidewalks and damaging curbs over. And of course, the damage to curbs takes years and years and years to happen. But now we're just putting in, and the sad part about Madera is, for some strange reason, the people that I sell homes to, they don't like trees. So we put a yard tree in, they take it out. And they don't understand that that's a city requirement.
Right.
And as a result, I don't know whether they don't like to break leaves or what the deal is. Me, I like the shade.
Cools your house.
But
okay.
Yeah, anytime you cut concrete on a monolithic pour, you'll damage it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Montes.
Mike, we're not done with you still.
Oh, I thought
One more. So I'm going to kind of do a combination. So I'm going to express some of my concerns as well. And I think I share some of the same concerns as Mayor Pro Tem Evans, because I did code enforcement. That was one of the things that we had to contend with: people parking on lawns, people parking on curbs. And this does make it easier. So I think some of the mitigation you talked about and Keith talked about in the report, I think that if we do something like this, it would probably be, that would be part of it. Well, for me, at least, right? And, and I'm one of 7. So, and you did talk about the inlets, increasing the inlets. You talked about the CC&R. So can you explain how that would work? Like that, would you have a neighborhood or homeowner association with their own code enforcement? I mean, because I've also enforced in homeowners associations where they have their CC&Rs and they ask the city, can you enforce my rules? But we can't.
No.
So can you kind of explain how that process will work?
So typically in every subdivision that I do in the CC&Rs, I put in a clause that there's an architectural review committee. And that architectural review committee generally consists of me and a couple of people who work for me. And what we've done in the past is, for instance, we don't allow trailers or boats to be parked in driveways or on the street in any of our subdivisions. So we typically drive through the subdivisions maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. And if we see a trailer or a boat, we just send them a letter and tell them you're in violation of the CC&Rs. And if you don't remove it, then you'll be subject to litigation. Most people are very cooperative, and typically this comes when the second owner buys the home. Usually when the first owner buys the home, we explain the CC&Rs. We tell them what the rules are. But then they turn around and resell the home, and real estate agents don't go through the CC&Rs with the homeowners. They don't go through association rules with them. And so we have people buying homes that were second buyers who don't understand the rules. Well, then we have to go back and enforce those rules. So I do that in my subdivisions. I don't know what other developers do. But I'm real particular about it, and I get tired of people violating CC&Rs, and we've sent out lots and lots of letters. I've only had to litigate one time, and it only took a letter from the attorney to solve the problem for them to get their boat out of the driveway and take it someplace else.
So is litigation the only option, or do you have an option in the CC&R to say, hey, if we find you in violation, we're going to send you a fine or do something?
No, you can't. Unfortunately, you can't do that. So you can litigate it. If it's within a gated community, you can do that because now you have a homeowners association that will enforce that. But typically in a standard residential subdivision, you don't have the association. You only have an architectural review committee because the homeowners are not paying into an association for any service that's being provided. The city's providing the service, the homeowners are paying the city directly. So we typically have to do it ourselves. And like I said, I've only had one case where I've had to get an attorney involved and send them a letter and tell them to move their boat.
So if it's not you or somebody from your architectural review committee, it's really going to be essentially on the city at that point.
No, not really. I mean, the city doesn't have to do anything.
Well,
it all depends on what the if the developer likes their subdivision enough, if they're proud of Madera, I live here in Madera, unlike all these other developers that don't live here. When they go home at night, they could care less what happens in Madera. And I live here, and I have great concern for this community. And I think Arnaldo and anybody that I've talked to can tell you that that as far as I'm concerned, I've lived here all my life. My family came here in 1921. We've been here forever. We're part of the community, and we're proud of our community, and we don't want to see it go downhill. So I take great pride in maintaining our subdivisions and making sure that the people follow the rules. And once you get them in the habit of following the rules, it's really not, they'll do it. It's just a question of getting them in the habit.
And it's more of the long term.
Yes.
And we've had items like this come before us. And another concern I have is the carving something out like a special exemption. I think if we're going to allow this or we're going to do this, I think it should be applied to everybody equally. Right.
Oh, I agree. And that's why I'm asking that it be adopted as a city standard.
Okay. So, but I don't know if we don't have, that would be part of the direction to go back and say, hey, this is what we want. That's what we want, some of these mitigation measures. And then we can come back at that point and then we would vote on it. Correct? Okay.
Yes. I appreciate the fact that you're even considering this because, Keith is a great engineer. I mean, he's a little bit old fashioned in my estimation. Sorry, Keith, but
give Keith a hard time. I think he just gives us, these are the facts, right?
Yeah.
These are the facts. I think that, and I appreciate that about Keith, right? This is what it is. And we make the decision.
Right. That is correct.
And we, I mean, no matter what, people blame us for everything. Right. So say they do have something wrong with their curb, something's going on in the city. Maybe they do have a policy that, okay, it's the homeowner's responsibility. That doesn't stop the city from getting the complaints and it doesn't stop the city from having to defend litigation. And that's another concern that I have. Cause I mean, you should see some of the stuff that
I understand.
we can't tell you about. I tell everybody about it, but some of the stuff that comes through to us, it's like, wow, okay. But we have to contend with all that stuff. So
yeah, I get it. You and I have worked on code enforcement before together, so I understand. But anyway, I do appreciate you letting me come before you and present this, and I hope you can find it within your purview to approve it at some point in time. Any other questions?
So we'll have Mayor Pro Tem Evans.
Yes. One more thing. Now, if this should pass, then this means for the entire city, this wouldn't just be for certain subdivisions. It would be the entire city that we would be having this with, right?
Well, I'm only asking for this in residential subdivisions.
I understand, but it says here for all cities. So that means that even though it be your subdivision and this is something that you want, but from here on, it would be something that would be adopted and it would be for the entire city to be able to use for other developers to come in and use. And instead of giving us a traditional, then everyone would say, okay, well, it's cheaper. So we'll now just do the roll curbs versus the traditional. And not all subdivisions may very well be like yours, where there may be very well some that maybe do teetotal just a little bit more. And there we go. We have cars up on the sidewalk, up in the yard and everything else, because it would be just so much more convenient to be able to just drive up in there. So that's what I wanted to know. If it was passed, it would be for everyone, for the entire city. So
that they could use it. They would not be required to use it.
Right.
And I can answer that one. This would be incorporated into the standard plans for the city of Madera. As such, everybody would have the opportunity to propose the use of it on residential subdivisions, unless council chose to go ahead and set specific standards for when it could or could not be used. As an example, I'm trying to recall whether I put it there or not. I think it did. The city of Clovis does not allow the rolled curb on the side streets. The area where the side yards of houses, that's one restriction that they have. Other agencies say at the approval of the city engineer, but I don't see that makes any sense for the city engineer to try to derive an answer as to whether this subdivision is somehow different from that. It would, if we went into the standards, it would be available to all subdivisions. Again, unless council chose to differentiate somehow.
Thank you, Keith. Councilmember Mejia.
Yes, I too share the concerns of Mayor Pro Tem Evans and Councilmember Montes. The area that I represent, Southeast Madera, we already have a hard time. The city has a hard time with parked cars. There's a lot of parked cars that they're on the street and they create a hazard for children that are playing, for students walking home, and especially for pedestrians that have disability. So I just think that this would be difficult. It's already a difficult situation for us, and it would make it more difficult. So I would be more in favor of keeping vertical.
Thank you. Councilmember Gallegos.
Just to comment on that, our residents are going to park on their lawns with rolled curbs or wedge curbs, no matter what. It's just the way it is. If they're going to park on it, the curb is not going to deter them. So the question for you, Mike, is Key put out just a ballpark. If we were to say yes to this and pilot it as a program, he said to make it effective, like a definite date, like a 2 years. So as a developer, would you be okay if we put it in place like for a 2 year and it comes back to the council to revisit it?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, right now the market's dying anyway, so there's not going to be a lot of houses being built currently.
Right. Okay. So that was my question. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Garcia. I too share a lot of the same concerns that a lot of the council members here. One of the things is that we can't really fix a lot of the mistakes from the past and what's taking place now. But one thing that we got to take in mind is that whenever you introduce a new subdivision or something new, it's to try to allow people to behave a certain way. And I see this happening in the Clovis. I see it happening in Riverstone. I see this happening in the Tesoro Viejo. So what do we got to offer that's countering that? What is it aesthetically that's countering that? So if we want to integrate newer communities into our city, then you have to be willing to make changes that that you otherwise wouldn't. And I understand that the city engineer may have some concerns. I have those same concerns, but the structural integrity is pretty big. Obviously, I mean, the other component of it is our PD. I mean, do we have enough resources to be able to mitigate for any of the issues that arise with that? But again, I think it's important that if you outline and you have these CC&Rs that are very specific, and I think you educate people, you inform people, and you continue to steer them in a behavioral way, then I think you're going to have better communities. I look at Montecito Park when I drive in there sometimes, and I can't say that it is a association. I'm certainly not allowed to go there unless I'm invited. And sometimes when I go in there, I do see the curves are really nice. I haven't been invited to Mike's subdivision yet.
Just go in, the gates open, just go in.
But when I drive around my neighborhood, I do see those same issues. I do see that, and it's very discouraging because you look at properties around you. I mean, you start thinking about homeownership pride. And sometimes that's the case. A lot of these folks that we may be talking about may not be homeowners. They may be renters. And again, it just comes down to the education piece. I wish we had someone like Steve again to go back and enforce that over and over. But I mean,
well, you can always come back to Madera,
Yeah, there's a lot of programs out there, and I'm not saying programs, but it requires staff. Obviously, that requires money, but I'd certainly want to counter what's taking place in other areas, and we have to be able to compete with that. And that's the market. If we don't compete with that, then you can't expect people to come to your community if you don't want to adapt to the changes that are taking place. So I'm not against it. I am in favor, but with a lot of mitigations to be able to offset those concerns that we spoke about, that the disadvantages that were laid out for us, if it requires more storm drainage,
drop inlet.
Thank you. Or other things like you said, with new subdivisions to try to slow down traffic, and any other little item that we can bring up that may mitigate, then I'm certainly in favor of that. I'm not going to say no completely, but I am in favor of trying to aesthetically just appeal more people to come to our community. We need that, because if you don't see it already, the southeast corner of Fresno, certainly people are gravitating to that area. And again, it's the aesthetic appeal, and we need to counter that as well. So I'm not opposed to that. It's not just one developer. This would be for all development. And like you said, if the market's down now, let's be proactive about it. Maybe in a year or two, people start building again, and let's move on that. So I'm not going to say no. It's not a hard no. It's a yes with these mitigations.
Thank you.
Mike, I want to thank you for listening to us and our concerns. I'm going to bring it back to public comment because we really didn't close out public comment to see if anyone else is wanting to ask a question. I know Councilmember Montes and I have a comment. Is there any other public comment that we have besides Michael?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia.
Okay. Hold on, Mike. I don't know if we're done with you yet, brother. We like your frank talk, basically. You know, you're a straight shooter. And I love the fact that you share with us the love of the city of Madera the way you do. Unfortunately, not all developers share your love of the city.
They don't live here.
You know, and I know that
Yeah.
you do, and you wanna put this in place, and I appreciate that. But not all developers are the same as you. And I have a problem with people rolling up on top of the sidewalks, and that happens all over the place. And our police department doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to go out there and do that enforcement of, et cetera, et cetera. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that I will vote to maintain the current infrastructure that we have for the reasons that everybody else has said it. But I do appreciate you making efforts to make Madera a good place.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to come before you this evening. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Montes.
I just wanted to clarify my comments. I'm not opposed to it. I think that we could do it with some mitigation, and we can address all of the council's concerns. Like maybe we do exclude a certain area, or we say on the side yards you can't do it. Because there would be no cutting in for driveway, so it'd be a little bit easier. But I think we can come up with a good solution, or at least continue to talk about it, because we do want to make ourselves competitive. And I know that you do care. You live here. I think you're going to live forever. You don't think so. So, so
No, I know I won't live forever.
You'll be around to patrol the neighborhoods, right? But I think that we should not just say, hey, we're not going to do it. I think we're smart enough to come up with some good solutions and some compromises and say, hey, how can we do this? How can we compete with other communities who are doing this? Because it does look nicer, right? So those would be my comments, that maybe we come back, or my direction to come back with some more of like ironed out mitigation methods, and then we can.
It's too bad that every developer couldn't put an architectural review committee in charge of their subdivision, so that when they were gone, the committee of the residents who lived there would be responsible for maintaining the CCNRs and making sure that people took care of their yards.
And I'm gonna steal a question from Councilwoman Gallegos. We can't require the developer to put in CCNRs.
No, we cannot.
Yeah. It was a good idea.
Yeah. Is there any further comments? Then we'll bring it back. We'll close public comment. We'll bring it back to council for a motion.
I think Councilman Montez's was kind of a motion.
Kind of.
Is that your motion? Thank you.
Move that we send it back to staff. They come back with some mitigation measures for allowing wedged or rolled curbs, and then give council another bite at the apple to kind of talk about this.
Second that.
Motion to send the item E2 back to staff for the development of this issue, and then bring it back to the council by Councilmember Montes and second by Councilmember Gallegos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
I'm voting no also on this.
No.
I'm voting no.
Okay, there are 4 noes and 3 yeses. And so the motion does not pass. The motion fails. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, sir.
For the record, do a roll call. Is there a roll call required for that?
No. We are all present, and roll calls are for when we do COVID, when people are
It wasn't clear who said yes or no.
Yeah,
that's why.
That's what I'm asking, just to be clear.
Okay, we can do that. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Evans,
No.
Councilmember Mejia,
No.
Councilmember Villegas,
No.
Mayor Garcia.
No.
Motion fails with 3 yes votes and 4 no votes by Mayor Pro Tem Evans, Councilmember Mejia, Councilmember Villegas, and Mayor Garcia voting no.
Thank you very much, Alicia, for that. We now move on to
Can
item.
we make another motion? Are we allowed to make another motion in that one falls? Yeah. So I'd like to make a motion that that our staff look at some positives and negatives and bring that back to us, because as a growing community in the city, we need to really look at updating some of our communities and maybe even look into bring back information on ways to Arnaldo, you said no about the CCNRs, but if there's some other language that we can put in, if they were to put in that subdivision, that type of a curb, we could also put that language in.
I just want to make a note that we did vote on not sending it back to staff, and we voted
On that motion. You voted no on that motion. I'm making a new motion.
A new motion
Yeah.
requesting
Different things.
Maybe just to bring it back, bring
Yeah.
back a workshop or something.
Yeah.
Hilda, could you give us some clarification on that?
The new motion would need to be something different. It sounds similar, but so if there can be a little more clarity on the motion. I've heard to send it back for a workshop, send it back for more pros and cons by staff. And the prior motion was to send it staff and for staff to include mitigation. So there is a thread there to allow pursuit of a new motion, but it should be clarified.
Okay, then I'll make a clarification on that motion to bring it back as a workshop.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Council, motion to provide a workshop on this issue by Councilmember Gallegos, second by Councilmember Montes. Do you want to roll call on this one, Mr. Rodriguez?
Well, if you have contradictory, if you don't have, then I think you would be appropriate. But now, I mean, you can ask to see if how many council members would be yay or nay.
Okay, well, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? No?
No.
Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilmember Montes?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Evans?
No.
Councilmember Mejia?
Yes.
Councilmember Villegas?
No.
Mayor Garcia?
No.
Motion passes with 4 yes votes and 3 no votes. No votes by Mayor Pro Tem Evans, Councilmember Villegas, and Mayor Garcia.
Thank you very much for that. So staff will act accordingly. And we now move on to item E3, update on citywide cannabis process. Mr. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. If you can give me a second to pull up my presentation. Okay, council. The item before you this evening is a status update on the cannabis permit processing that the city is currently engaged in. This was at the request of the city council. Council may recall that we identified a 3-step permit process for the city. With it, inside of each process, there's some sub steps, I'll call them. So phase 1 was the application process. The city did receive 26 standard applications, and by standard, all 26 of them were for standard retail applications. We have yet to receive any applications for either cultivation or for vertical integration. However, we've been in discussions with several potential applicants. The city also received 2 applications for retail under the umbrella of social equity applications. After a 5-day cure period, all applications were deemed complete. And what that meant is when we did an initial screening of the applications, and when I say we, it was HDL. They reviewed all the applications. Then they identified some relatively minor issues. applicants had 5 days to submit the requested information. All 28 of them were received on a timely manner. That then started phase two. Phase two was a scoring. All the scoring was completed by HDL. All but one application scored 90% or above. So we had very strong applicants. Both social equity applicants scored above the 90%. And council may recall that a minimum of 10 applicants will advance to phase three. And when I say that those 10, that does not include the 2 social equity. The 10 are specific to the retail, but again, it's only a minimum, not a maximum. So phase three, that is the phase that we are beginning to enter. At this point, all 28 applicants know their score. So they've all been notified via email of their score. So the city right now, we are currently recruiting a hearing officer. And the reason we're recruiting a hearing officer is that's to consider any potential appeals that we may receive. We are anticipating on receiving numerous appeals. And the appeals would be filed by an applicant. There would be a fee to file an appeal, and that would grant an applicant an opportunity to go before the hearing officer. And at that point, if the hearing officer felt that their application either merits additional points, at that point, they would be authorized to proceed on to phase three. The city is also recruiting an attorney to represent the city during the appeal process. It's expected that each appeal hearing is going to take between 4 and 6 hours. So these are very lengthy appeals. However, with that being said, the appeal fee must first be established. That is something that we have not done. And to establish that fee, we're going to bring an item back to the city council, and the city council will either approve, deny, or recommend adjustments to the recommended appeal fee. Once that appeal fee is brought before the council, and once the council takes action, at that point, that's when we're going to notify all 28 applicants of the next steps. We have not notified them of the exact process because they will have then 10 days to file an appeal. But we can't notify them to file an appeal unless we have everything spelled out in terms of the cost to do so. Phase three will include a community meeting and then a council meeting. And when I mean a council meeting, that's the council, that would be the decision. So where we're at right now, we're at the infant stages of phase three. And right now the phase is to bring on a hearing officer and an attorney to represent the city. Obviously, the city is going to be looking for someone who has served as an appeal officer in a similar situation, that has experience when it comes to cannabis hearings. And then also we would definitely want an attorney to represent us who has a lot of experience in the cannabis industry. And so that provides a very quick update. And I'm available for any questions if council should have any. Thank you.
Lisa, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have not received any written public comment, Mayor.
Is there anyone here in the room wanting to ask any questions regarding this issue? Seeing none, we will now close public comment and bring it back to the council for my colleagues for discussion and our questions of Arnoldo. Seeing none, hearing none. Okay, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Arnoldo, so you just mentioned that there is the contract award to be determined by November 16th. So that means by that time we'll have all the candidates per the ordinance that we had as far as the application process goes. We'll have 10 at that time, and then
you will have a minimum of 10.
Okay.
I can't state with confidence the precise number, but it's definitely going to be a minimum of 10.
Okay. And because of the high number of applicants, obviously the city, in your report, you assume that there's going to be an appeal process.
Correct.
Does the city feel, is the city in a position to be able to, I guess, to be able to accommodate for those appeals? And I'm assuming this is why we're going and trying to contract additional law firms, but will we have sufficient staff to be able to take care of that?
We do not have sufficient staff, internal staff. However, that's going to be contracted out to a firm that can handle the work. If we were to do that right now, every appeal hearing by itself is estimated to take between 4 to 6 hours, not including the preparation of the appeal.
And where does HDL sit on this appeal process?
HDL is not going to serve as either the attorney nor the appeal body. They're going to be assisting with the scoring themselves, so they could potentially be called to defend the scoring that they prepared.
And that was what I meant is where they stand. So obviously, because they scored, then they could be potentially called on this appeal process as well.
Absolutely. They completed all of the scoring. So city staff was not involved with the scoring whatsoever. That was 100% completed by HDL.
And last but not least, will our legal counsel have any process in this?
Our attorney is definitely going to be involved. And Hilda, she has her hand raised, so I will defer to her if that's appropriate, Hilda.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Yes, my office has been involved in ensuring that the city is following the procedures that are required. As the city manager mentioned, there will be three groups of people that will be involved in the hearings. One will be the HDL, and one will be staff, and then the other one would be my office. My office will have, in the same way that I subcontract for land use, I am subcontracting with an attorney that has handled cannabis appeals from the same firm that Mr. Chaffin is in, and he will be representing the city in the appeal hearings. The appeal hearings, we are estimating based on prior experience that they could take up to 6 hours, but the way we see them, it's going to be like the first one or two that are going to take longer than the rest, because a lot of it is going to be the attorney representing the city will familiarize herself with everything concerning the process and then go to specific issues that have been raised in the appeal. So that's the way it's going to work. I will be monitoring everything as well. And the first thing that as Mr. Rodriguez has mentioned, is trying to set up a fair and reasonable fee that allows the city to capture its cost for the appeal process. And that'll be brought to you. And then the other thing that will be brought to you will be a contract for a hearing officer. And that hearing officer is an independent hearing officer. Again, we're looking for somebody who's had experience in cannabis appeals. And so we feel confident that we'll get some applicants.
Great. Thank you, Hilda. And, you know, I guess it goes to my concern always is litigation, especially when it holds up the process of something that we've been trying to get underway for quite some time. I would say years now. So I hope that we do have a good team behind this process, and we can actually move forward and hopefully see some retail stores open up. Hopefully, maybe at the beginning of the year. I mean, I'm not sure how this process really takes. We said 6 to 4 hours, but by that time, I'm not sure if we can start once these contracts are awarded, how soon after we can see maybe some operation in the city. Can anyone?
So after the appeal process is complete, and some of this is probably going to happen a little concurrently. So it's definitely not one doesn't have to stop and then we start the other one. So some of these processes are happening simultaneously. We are looking at batching some of the community meetings. And the reason that we're looking at batching some of the community meetings is we are going to have a large volume of applicants that are moving on to phase 3. And by batching some of the community meetings, either by location, if they're located near the same area, which I believe some of them are, but I'll also admit that I have not studied them. We'll be looking at that to try to minimize the number of community meetings. And on top of that, it's really to benefit the community, because there's probably potentially some community members that may receive 2 notices if there happens to be 2 cannabis shops nearby. We don't want to invite them to 2 meetings because people have other stuff to do rather than attend a meeting. So if they can attend 1 meeting and discuss 2 items, and then that's obviously better. And so we're going to be looking at batching the meetings potentially into 3 or 4 meetings for all of the applicants. After the community meetings, staff and HDR are going to get together, and then that's when we'll be making a determination of what the recommendation is for which applicants should be granted a permit, and then those applications will be coming before City Council. The City Council meetings are going to be over a couple of days. This is probably not going to be a one meeting item. Council may recall very, very early on in the process, I think HDL estimated potentially 2 to 3 meetings. Where I don't think they said 2 to 3 days. I think they said 2 to 3 meetings. So hopefully they're not 2 to 3 days. But at the same time, these are big decisions, and we want to make sure that the council's afforded all of the time that the council feels is necessary to make the best decision for the community. And so we're going to be having some very lengthy meetings, I think, coming up. But kind of going back to what you said, Councilmember Rodriguez, we want to be sure that we dot our I's, cross our T's, because this is a very there's always a potential for litigation in these types of permits, and we simply want to try to minimize that as much as we can.
So without really putting yourself in some type of a position where you're giving out certain time, is there a time frame when you anticipate that we may have something rolling out?
If you allow me, if you can give me probably a couple of weeks, I'll probably say the next 2 weeks, because at that point, some of this is going to be largely dependent on the availability of a hearing officer and their availability. And I definitely don't want to commit because we have not received the applications. The other thing that we're going to have to be looking at now, because we're starting to enter the holiday season, are the holidays, because we definitely wouldn't want to have a meeting on the week of Thanksgiving when kids are out or something like that. So I think there's a couple of variables. I think the largest variable right now for the city is going to be the availability of a hearing officer.
Okay, well, thank you.
Councilmember Montes.
Question kind of in the same vein, and I apologize if you answered this already. Regarding the 2 social equity applications, is there a process, because we're going to do 6 standard and 2 social equity, seeing as we only had 2 social equity applicants? I know they have to go through the public hearing process. They have to go through the approvals from council, but is that process going to be any different? And that could, I would say that that's a possibility, at least in my mind, to expedite at least those 2, because they're not part of the 24 others that are in a competitive process.
Yes, and that was our approach all along, because we did have 2 applications. And if I recall, council had indicated a desire to have 2 social equity. The plan is to move those forward prior to the rest of them.
Okay, so potentially we can see them kind of have an expedited process, because there essentially is no other competition.
Correct.
And so we can see some retail open sooner.
I didn't get a date.
No, unfortunately,
you're not going to get one either.
I'm a little reluctant to give a date until I have a date from a hearing officer. So once I have that, I'll feel a lot more comfortable, if that's okay, council.
I mean, regardless, they still have to go through the public hearing process. They have to have the public comment period as well, right? And
correct.
And then it has to come to council further. But I mean, we can take them piecemeal. Right?
Yeah, correct. And so just as a reminder, the community meeting is going to be to solicit community feedback. And once we have the community meeting, at that point, we'll put together a package, and then the entire package will come before the council.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Evans.
Okay, I want to ask, once all the vetting is done and the licensing have been issued, just say that someone received the licensing, are they allowed at that point to sell their licensing to someone else, or are they the actual company that has to use that licensing for the purpose of cannabis?
So licensing is permitted to be transferred. However, there's a very involved process for that. And depending on the percentage, some of that does, if I'm going to go off the top of my head here, if I recall, once it meets a certain threshold, it does have to come back before the city council. So it's not as simple as someone, for example, me going out and buying it because I have plenty of money to do so. That's not the case. And so it's a very involved process, and I don't want to get into the specifics because when we wrote it was about 1.5 years ago, and I honestly don't recall. But however, I can definitely provide council with an update with the specifics on that. But so yes, they can be transferred, but it is an involved process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we might need some clarification at a later date, because I do remember that it would come back to the city.
Yeah, I remember that
there's thresholds. Correct.
They're in a chance of losing that permit if they don't go through the process. I remember reading that.
Yeah, if someone is afforded a permit, if they're granted a permit by the council and they do not activate that permit, if memory serves me, it's a year, that they lose the permit. However, if someone starts a business and say that they want to sell the business or percentage of the business, there's a separate process for the transfer of that as well. And so there's a couple of different scenarios at stake, and we try to identify all the various scenarios. And obviously that's why we have a company like HDL who's well versed in this. But different things happen in different businesses, and it's very difficult to try to anticipate all of them. But I think we have a lot of them covered in terms of someone granting it and not opening, or versus another one of just transferring it.
Okay, thank you.
And we don't have anybody from HDL here.
We do not, Mayor. No.
Okay.
And this was simply an update.
And I have to say, on behalf of staff and HDL, that whole packet of cannabis, we pretty fine-tooth everything. If you read through it again, you'll see all your questions are answered there because we made sure we dotted every I and crossed every T. So thank you for that.
This item is an informational item only, and there's no action to be taken. So we will move on. Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez.
Just for clarification, you'll find that in the ordinance under section 65.28, transfer of cannabis permit. It's in the ordinance. So if you want to look for that, that's where it's at. And it's
What's the number again?
The section of the ordinance is 6-5.28, and that's transfer of cannabis business permits.
6-528, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. We will now move on to item F, council member reports, announcements, and future agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for the mayor and the council members to make brief reports on boards, committees, and other public agencies and public events, to request updates, to initiate future agenda items, and to take action on matters initiated under the section of the agenda. Under this section, the council may take action only on items specifically agendized and which meet other requirements for action. Councilmember Gallegos.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. First, I'd like to put a shout out to the Rotary Club and Nick Salinas for that wonderful Old Timers Day parade. It was well attended. A lot of people of our community were in the streets. Thank you, Chief, for riding me around, waving to and passing out stickers and making sure we had those stickers for our community. I'd also like to congratulate good friends of mine, the King and Queen, Bill, Alicini, and Carla, and Monty Pistoresi, who was our Grand Marshal for the day. I also attended Madera Unified put together a prayer to pray over all the schools. They started at district office and then went to every single elementary school, every junior high, and every high school in Madera Unified. There were prayer groups with pastors and priests at those locations last Sunday. And the last thing I'd like to share is I had my very first grandbaby on Thursday. She looks just like my son. Exactly. I held her and it was like looking at him 28 years later. So I'm excited about that. And with that, that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to also brief you all, and Mayor, myself, and the Greater Madera Kiwanis had an opportunity to listen to some staff from the Madera County Transportation, also representative from BPRNA, and some of our staff here in regards to Measure T. So if there's anyone out there that wants outreach and education on the Measure T sales tax initiative, that's actually out there. So reach out to me, or you can reach out to Madera County Transportation. I'd also like to, this would be more of a recommendation, Mr. Mayor. There are items that come across the agenda that are workshops, reports, that are non-public hearings. And I would just recommend that if there is a presentation directly to the council, that you allow us to ask questions. A lot of times I know that the item may come to a conclusion, and there may be some of us pressing because we want to ask those questions directly to the presenter or whomever is giving the report. And a lot of times I know it goes to public comment, but again, a lot of the information that's being provided is for us to make informed decisions. And I would just ask that as a courtesy to allow us to ask those questions before we open it up to public comment. Again, it can go either way. You're actually chairing the meetings, but I'd find it as a courtesy that if these workshops are meant for us to get more information, then a lot of times we get caught up with public comment. We forget to ask the questions that we have written down or we have in place. So just a recommendation. Again, I'm not sure if that's something that the rest of the council feels. Thank you.
Thank you. Ever since we have been having our city council meetings, I follow the protocol as presented by our city clerk and our attorney. And so under the requesting public comment, it goes before bringing it for discussion and comment by city council members. But if you'd like, we can also just check into that and see if there's a
Yeah, I know a lot of the times you probably don't even have a lot of public comment, but it's just that whenever there's a question, I mean, we have to go through this whole process, and a lot of times, there's just questions that you want to ask directly to the presenter, and that certainly takes away from that presentation. So just out of courtesy, I would ask if that's something we can do moving forward.
Okay,
Not
thank
sure
you.
if the rest of the council feels the same way.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Montes.
Yeah, I would like to congratulate the Councilwoman Nana Gallegos on giving the grandma for the first time. And I also wanted to say thank you to Chief. I know I didn't get a ride, but I do want to say thank you to Sergeant Finnegan, right?
Yeah.
Right. Lieutenant Finnegan. Okay, I'm sorry. She got promoted, right? And after she drove me around. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Alrighty. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I would like to just say thank you to PD for allowing me to ride with Commander Gino. We had a great time in the Old Timers, and we were able to pass out some candy, and that's on the DL. That was on the DL, but anyway, I was honored to be able to go and present to Mr. Clay Dalton for the Farmer of the Year, which was a very, very nice dinner. It was great. I was also able to present to the King and Queen for the Old Timers, as well as Mr. Pisaresi. And then also for the 100th year for Flora, Zoom Waltz. I'm hoping I'm saying it correctly. She was 100 years old, and I was able to present to her. It was a very nice dinner that they had. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you to everyone. Thank to those who organized the Old Timers. And for everyone that was there, there were a number of children there. We were able to have the little Rodriguez babies to ride with us, and they enjoyed that, getting in the front seat and putting on all the little helmets and everything. So it was quite nice. But anyway, thank you, everybody, and God bless.
Thank you. Councilmember Mejia.
I too had a great time at the Old Timers Day Parade, riding the antique fire truck. It was great to see the community come out. All the little kids, it was really nice. And then glad to see that we had the event at the park as well. It was a great time. I had the opportunity to be a part of the Hispanic Heritage Month event held at Madera South High School. It was great to hear from all the people that came out and talked about their own stories growing up, Hispanic. And I hope that it was inspiring to students. I was invited to Mountain Vista High School to speak as well on Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was a good time, having a great discussion with the students there. They also just held an election for their student body, and I got to meet the school president. It was really nice. Thank you to Mountain Vista High School for having me out there. This Saturday, I was part of Love Madera. Love Madera came back, and it was hosted by Love Madera, the Madera Association of Realtors, with support by the city of Madera. We had over 50 volunteers clean up our downtown. It looked really nice afterward. So that was a great event. The Day of the Dead event is being organized. It's planned for November 1st, in the evening of November 1st. That's a Tuesday at Courthouse Park. So I would invite everyone, all of my colleagues, if you can make it. It's a Tuesday evening. I know it's a work day, but hopefully you can come out. And I also just had another baby nephew, baby Malachi, was born on Friday. So very happy for that.
There is growth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Villegas.
Thank you, Mayor Santa Garcia. I have one other little report for the last meeting that the Madera County Art Authority. We have an issue with Mr. Lex Ford, the owner of the building next to the empty lot. The building was burned out. So he complained about the mural, the paint is in the walls, about the little children was killed by the mother and father. He complained about the mural is it's already damaged. So instead of that, he wanted to can be the whole wall can be one mural. So he don't like the little boy mural no more because he's complaining about his damage. So maybe the Madera County Art Authority is going to come out with that solution. Maybe the whole wall can be painted facing west. Also like everybody know, I was walking in the parade, so I enjoy walking. I was greeting the people, and that was my purpose of walking. So, and thank you for the organization of the all-time parade. And that's my report.
Councilmember Montes.
I just wanted to say I apologize to Alicia for forgetting her. She did keep us caffeinated and sugared up on the day of the parade. That's why we were so sweet that day.
No sunscreen, by the way. That was at the time.
Wow.
Sunscreen is on my list for next year.
I actually looked at the back of your truck and I saw some.
Put a hat on. Put a hat on.
The parade was a wonderful event. Thank you all to everyone who was either a volunteer or put on the parade, and also our staff for being out there for us. I think it was a great event. I want to ask people to be on the lookout for the Measure T mailer. Right. That's going to be coming out very soon, and it'll help educate our community regarding Measure T. So be on the lookout for that. And that's basically all I have for tonight. We will now move on to item G, closed session. Alicia, would you take us to closed session, please?
Hilda, would you please take us to closed session?
Sure.
Hilda, would you please take us to closed session?
I can take you there, but I'm in Fresno right now. There are two items under closed session, section G. They're both conference with labor negotiators under Government Code section 54957.6. The first one is with agency designated representatives Arnoldo Rodriguez, Wendy Silva, and Che Johnson, and employee groups, General Bargaining Unit, Madera, POA, Mid-Management Employee Group, and Law Enforcement Mid-Management Group. The second one is with agency designated representatives, Arnoldo Rodriguez and Che Johnson, and unrepresented employees, Police Chief, City Engineer, Director of Human Resources, Public Works, Operations Director, Director of Parks and Community Services, Information Services Manager, Planning Manager, Chief Building Official, Director of Community Development, Director of Financial Services, and the City Clerk.
Thank you very much, Hilda. This will conclude our meeting tonight. Thank you all for coming. We will move on to closed session at this time.
And Mayor, you will be coming out to report anything if required. So technically, it's not adjourned. Mark, do I just stay on this line for close?
Reconvene our city council our city council meeting in open session. The time is now 9:52. Hilda?
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session on the two items on item G of the agenda, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you very much. It is now 9:52. This meeting is adjourned. I want to thank everyone for participating. Our next meeting is Wednesday, October 19th of this year.
Good night.